In light of Reactivate's cancellation, the future of Transformers in the gaming sphere is looking pretty grim. We occasionally get stuff like Earthspark Expedition or Galactic Trials, but those are hardly the AAA experiences we grew accustomed to for a while there. So I thought it'd be a great time to check out the last truly great game we've gotten out of this franchise. Transformers Devastation. This is especially a good time to do so since this month, time of recording, October 2025 marks the 10-year anniversary of this game's release. Feel old yet? Because wow, I can feel my knees disintegrating in real time. Devastation was developed by Platinum Games, responsible for other greats like Bayonetta, Vanquish, and one of my favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Their bread and butter is fast-paced combat that looks cool just as much as it makes you feel cool, as well as massive set pieces usually revolving around a normal-sized dude fighting something the size of a building. Needless to say, I think they're an inspired choice to work on a Transformers game. I was looking forward to this particular video because I actually never got to experience Devastation back when it came out, because I was a stupid teenager. As a massive fan of the High Moon Cybertron games who was seriously burned by Rise of the Darkspark just 1 year prior, I was incredibly salty that they were just doing G1 stuff completely unrelated to those games, instead of giving us a proper third game in the Cybertron series. By the time I realized how dumb that was, the game was delisted from all digital platforms, along with all the other games lost when Activision decided to not renew any of their licenses. We can blame Hasbro for a lot of dumb decisions with Transformers and their other franchises, but this one falls completely on Activision. Unfortunately, this means the game is now nigh impossible to track down legitimately, especially for a reasonable price. But luckily, I found a completely legal method of doing so. Completely legal. Anyway, enough preamble, let's get into this thing. Let's start with the gameplay, arguably the most important thing in games. In typical Platinum fashion, combat is composed of fast-paced hack-and-slash segments where you can string light and heavy attacks together, either preset combos you can look up or purchase in-game, or freestyle if you're so inclined. And if you do it all right, you can end your combo with Vehicle Attack, which does some nice damage and can even knock enemies in the air or stun them. You can also throw in these unique abilities represented by the yellow ability gauge, which regenerates over time, as well as ultimate attacks you can use to unleash an especially powerful blow, represented by the blue ultimate gauge, which you fill up by attacking enemies. It's easy to look and feel really cool once you get the hang of it, but it's also just as easy to look and feel like an idiot if your timing is off and you just get the
Scrap.
kicked out of you from all sides. There are 5 playable Autobots, all with their own distinct stats and abilities. Optimus Prime is the jack of all trades, being pretty good at everything but not specializing in any of it. Bumblebee prioritizes speed over hitting hard. Sideswipe favors a hit and run kind of playstyle. He's got the highest speed stat by default and does some pretty solid melee damage, but has the lowest health and defense, making him a glass cannon. Wheeljack is more of a defensive fighter, best with ranged weaponry, and last but not least is Grimlock. I think he's by far the most unique out of the whole roster. Grimlock is a walking tank. Slowest character in the game by a wide margin, but his high defense and melee damage more than make up for it. He can also do a couple of things no one else in the game can. He can string together combos and interact with objects, all without leaving his alternate T-Rex mode. Those tiny arms are good for something after all. He even gets his flame breath as a unique ranged weapon in T-Rex mode. The range sucks and the damage isn't great against most enemies, but I appreciate that it's there. Everyone also has weapons unique to them, such as Optimus's axe, Wheeljack's wrenches, and so on, but you'll get weapon drops as you defeat enemies, and even unlock unique weapons by defeating bosses. Most weapons even have different element types with special status effects. I never noticed a substantial difference during my playthroughs, but they are there. So you're encouraged to mix and match your loadout to fit your playstyle. So as a fun bonus, if G1 Optimus isn't quite your jam, you could totally approximate something like Bayverse Optimus if you wanted to.
You'll never stop at one. I'll take you all on.
Everyone's pretty balanced among one another, but for one reason or another, I find Bumblebee to be hilariously effective against most bosses. Maybe it's just my tendency to get right up in their faces. Maybe it's equipping him with nothing but cryo weaponry, causing them to take longer to recover. But I wound up essentially stun locking almost everyone I come across into an infinite combo. So, on to the story. For better or for worse, the plot here really feels like it was ripped out of an episode of the G1 cartoon. Essentially, Megatron decides to start cyberforming Earth into a world more suited to Cybertronian life, at the cost of all organic life on the planet dying. He's going to do this using advanced technology from a lost Autobot ship called the Proud Star. It was captained by the great Nova Prime, and their goal was to both cyberform uninhabited planets to be suitable for Cybertronians to live on, and also for their ship's computer, the Pharaohtaxis, to act as a sort of library of Alexandria for their culture, being the last source of a lot of history that's been lost over the years. The Proud Star's computer system is also so advanced compared to anything Cybertronian technology is capable nowadays that it doesn't just have lost information from the past, it can even predict the future to a T, which is a really fun detail in the Proud Star level. Depending on who you're playing as, the computer will predict your chosen character's future, mainly alluding to their fates in either the 1986 movie or Season 3 of the cartoon.
Cybertronian Matrix bearer designated Optimus Prime. Through the Matrix, we can foretell your future. You will defeat your great enemy, and the war you have waged will end soon. You will lead your people so that they may face their darkest hour, but they will face it without you.
You say the war will end, and my friends will be safe. That is all I could ever ask.
Unable to read your aura, Cybertronian though you are also other. Your destiny is clouded, branching in ways we've never seen. Greatness or despair, all roads are open to you.
Why this room talk to Grimlock? Meet Grimlock, no care what it says!
Darkness comes for us all. Your time may be short, but your legacy will endure. That which you have made will, in time, save planets.
My time may be short. Good thing I don't believe in hocus pocus prophecies. Please don't be true. Please don't be true. Please don't be true.
Beware the coming tide of chaos. You will evolve, known by another name. In time, your spirit will be that of legend. Your monikers will be many. The World's Bridge, Goldbug, Race Welder, and finally, Goldfire.
Wow, that makes me feel special.
Getting identified. Cybertronian sideswipe. Beware the coming tide of chaos. Your very nature will be tested, and an abyss will present itself to you. Face it with courage, and you will live. Face it with anger, and the fates are not so kind.
Have you been talking to my brother? Because you sound just like him.
This is also the device used to control the Insecticon swarms that are cyberforming Earth, so the Autobots' goal is to get it back. And this is what the entire story revolves around. They chase after the Decepticons while Megatron calls them stupid the whole time, until they reach a boss fight with iconic G1 characters, included but not limited to Thundercracker and Soundwave, Shockwave, the Constructicon / Devastator, Menasor, and obviously Megatron himself. Where it gets interesting is that the Decepticons reveal this whole plan of cyberforming populated worlds isn't something they came up with. This was Nova Prime's plan. As we come to find out, while his mission was initially to protect knowledge and cyberform uninhabited worlds, at some point the Proud Star came into contact with some dark force that drove Nova and his crew to insanity, picking each other off, and the only one not touched by the darkness deciding to crash the ship onto some backwater planet where no one will find it. Whoops, other Transformers found it. It's not explicitly said what they encountered, but it's heavily implied to be Unicron that corrupted them. But I like to think it could also be the Devoid from the IDW continuity, since that's what corrupted the Proud Star crew there as well. It probably is just Unicron, but fun to think about. After this is probably my favorite part of the whole game, working your way to the Proud Star's control room with all 5 Autobots fighting as a team while getting a full boss rush on the way there, having to go through Thundercracker and Skywarp, all 6 Constructicons at once, then both Devastator and Menasor at the same time. Just one combiner gave me a decently hard time during my playthrough, but both were a whole ordeal. Super satisfying once I managed to beat them both though. But after all that, it's time to fight Megatron man to man. bot to bot, truck to tank in one final battle over the Ferrotaxis and the Earth's fate. This is probably the most hyped part of the game, as Optimus and Megatron argue over using it responsibly. OP doing his typical they deserve to choose their own fate spiel, and Meg's blaming him for choosing what he sees as byproduct over making their home his biggest priority. In the end, Optimus finally gets possession of the Ferrotaxis, but it's been stuck with a failsafe, and the only way to call off the cyberforming is by destroying it. So he's faced with the trolley problem of saving Earth at the cost of losing priceless knowledge from a bygone era, or dooming humanity for the sake of Cybertron. We all know what his choice was going to be, but it's still a good moment. The game officially ends with the Autobots officially declaring Earth as their home and planning to beef up their firepower in order to better protect it, namely by creating a new Autobot combiner with Optimus himself as the core component, which just so happens to be getting a new toy as of the time of this game's release. What a coincidence! And the cherry on top, we get a post-credit scene from somewhere deep in the Proud Star as Nova Prime awakens from stasis. Man, what an awesome note to end on. I can't wait to see where they go with it. Oh. Right. Anyway, the story was fine. I found myself having a hard time finding stuff to talk about other than just recapping everything for two reasons. One, this game is short. Real short. By the end of my playthrough, I clocked in about 4 hours, not including additional challenges. You heard that right. 4 hours. That and not a whole lot really happens here. Follows a pretty limited cycle of having to chase a thingy, Megatron trash talks you over comms, boss fight, repeat. It was a means to an end to get from one boss fight to another. Had some good character moments here and there, but nothing out of this world. One thing that really stood out to me here was the voice acting. One of Devastation's selling points is how authentic this is to the G1 cartoon, even getting all the surviving cast members back to reprise their roles. Mostly. All the vets you'd expect are back. You got Peter Cullen as Optimus, Dan Gilvezan as Bumblebee, Michael Bell as Sideswipe, Greg Berger, who's a super nice guy by the way, as Grimlock, and Frank Welker as Megatron. And they all do fantastic jobs. It's like they never even left these characters, and you can't even tell a difference between any given episode of the cartoon and dialogue from this game. But what's a little more iffy is the new actors they got for some of these characters. Christopher Swindle does a good job as Wheeljack, even if it did take me a little while to get used to. I think if they pitched up his voice a little bit, it'd probably sound close enough to Chris Latta.
The plasma core's in overdrive, and it's powering the Insecticons.
I think you're gonna eat those words on a silicon wafer.
We've got to find a way to shut it down.
Speaking of Chris Latta, Starscream was also recast due to his passing in 1994, and Screamer's voice actor in this game, Scott White, isn't my favorite Starscream voice. I'll tell you that much.
But plasma energy is unstable. No Cybertronian has been able to tame it since the Golden Age. And where will you be, Lord Megatron?
He put in the effort, and I respect that, but hearing this Starscream is so irritating, I just wanted him to shut up every time he spoke, and not in a good way. But what I find odd is that despite a huge selling point being everyone reprising their roles from the cartoon, that's not entirely accurate. Bizarrely, despite Frank Welker reprising both Megatron and Soundwave, he doesn't voice Skywarp and Frenzy/Rumble, despite voicing those guys in the cartoon as well. Why have Scott White voice all those guys in addition to Starscream, despite having the original actor right there anyway? Was it too much strain at his age? Too costly to pay Frank for those characters as well? It's not necessarily a bad thing, mind you, especially since Skywarp and the cassettes barely have speaking lines. I just found it odd enough to point out. What I found the most jarring is that Shockwave and to a lesser extent Devastator getting recast despite their voice actors, Corey Burton and Arthur Burkhart respectively, still being alive and kicking to this day, much less back in 2015. Devastator sounds close enough to his G1 voice to where I'm not bothered by it, but I don't like this voice for Shockwave.
We will control the plasma energy.
Female Autobots. I thought they were extinct.
And once we do, the plasma core will save Cybertron, not doom it.
Decepticons, we're under attack! Scramble!
This isn't a boss fight with Shockwave, it's a fight with his stunt double. At first I assumed this was a budget concern because maybe they didn't want to pay another voice actor just for Shockwave, But even that doesn't make perfect sense since his voice actor in this game, Daryl Curlow, only voices Shockwave and lines for miscellaneous foot soldiers. Maybe it was a cost thing. Having Daryl do it being less pricey than whatever Corey Burton would have charged, I don't know. Probably also the reason the Insecticons Shrapnel, Bombshell, and Kickback are all completely silent instead of getting their VAs back as well. But the Insecticons are all treated as mass clones to fight, so that doesn't really matter. Just to clarify, this whole rant I went on about voice actors does not impact my enjoyment of the game as a whole. Well, except Starscream. Listening to that guy was genuinely unpleasant. I just wanted to bring it up since it's a talking point I've never seen anyone actually talk about when they discuss this game. Graphically, the game looks fantastic, opting for a cel-shaded look that really sells that this is the G1 cartoon brought into a 3D environment. Everyone's design is spot on and all the characters are about the right size they should be. The only criticisms I could give the aesthetics are all very, very minor, all things considered. The transformations are pretty rough, on par with Rise of the Beast levels of characters stretching and contorting until the robot character model is replaced with the vehicle model. Granted, unless you're a nitpicky nerd like me, you're not going to notice in the heat of the moment. Speaking of stretching and contorting, I don't think characters made entirely of metal should be able to move like that. And for anyone wondering if this is canon to the cartoon, no, it is not. Interviews with Platinum Games explicitly state that this is its own continuity, which I feel is pretty apparent in the game itself, even if you don't have that outside context. If you squint hard enough, you could place it between Season 2 and the movie, but stuff like Megatron being a tank now instead of a gun, and also a terrorist with noble intentions rather than the power-hungry warlord, everything to do with Nova Prime and the Proud Star, and the Optimus Maximus tease at the end despite the latter two not even existing during the cartoon's run, I'll make it pretty obvious there's no connection. Though if you really wanted to, you could headcanon this as being a prequel to the Combiner Wars show that was released around the same time, since this was marketed as a Combiner Wars tie-in under that toy line. But there are a few nitpicks preventing that from working perfectly as well. By the way, I'd be remiss not to point out how awesome the soundtrack is. I can't play any of it because copyright, but in typical Platinum Games fashion, every single track is a total bop. Once you beat the game and you're itching for more to do, fear not. There are plenty of challenges available to screw around in if you so choose. These are all unlocked throughout the story, and have a fair amount of variety, such as knock X amount of Decepticons through gates, or defeat Y amount of Decepticons within a certain time limit. My personal favorite is a boss rush where you have to fight all the playable Autobots one after another. It's fun suddenly having your tricks turned against you and having to think on your feet to avoid them. After beating the bosses, you'll be rewarded with unique weapons based on their weaponry. So you can replay the story with Devastator's drills, Starscream's null rays, and even blast Megatron in the face with his own fusion cannon if you wanted to. And it wouldn't be a licensed video game without a bunch of collectibles. Throughout the 7 chapters, there are 3 things to look out for. Kremzeeks, which are electric bioweapons that bounce all over the goddamn place and are a pain to collect. Then there's also Decepticon logos and spy drones you can shoot. These all unlock artwork from past toy lines and comics and the like. Nothing super interesting, but it's better than nothing. And if that's not enough for you, once you beat the game on Commander, aka hard difficulty, a couple more difficulties get unlocked, those being Magnus and Prime. I haven't tried those yet because I'm not that confident in my skills, but there you go, even more to do. What I really appreciate is that even though Devastation is very much a G1 inspired game, it's a love letter to the franchise as a whole at the time, with all sorts of references to other takes. Nova Prime is a creation of the IDW continuity. Most of the cast looks suitably more Combiner Warsy. Blitzwing is depicted as using fire and ice weaponry like his animated counterpart. Oh no, speaking of animated, the weapons caches you can find throughout every chapter bear a pretty strong resemblance to how the Allspark looks in that show. To top it all off with what may be the deepest of deep cuts in the entire game, Shockwave has the ability to create clones of himself, a power mentioned once in the cartoon's production bible but never shown in the cartoon itself. Really, any piece of media aside from this game. The clones are even gray like the original Astro Magnum toy that would later be imported to America to become Shockwave. That is such a cool nod. And don't even get me started on the weapon. Those are a whole treasure trove of references in and of themselves. A few of my favorites are Megatron's shotgun from Dark of the Moon making an appearance, the basic hammers and battle hammers being based on the Magnus hammer from Transformers Animated and the Forge of Solus Prime from well, Transformers Prime, respectively, and heavy hammers being dead ringers for the mace Grimlock uses in Age of Extinction. These are far from the only references to weapons from other corners of the franchise, but they're the coolest to me. All in all, you can really tell the whole team was composed of Transformers fans. They really did their homework, and their passion shines through even if they didn't have the time or budget they may have had for bigger games like Metal Gear Rising. I'd highly recommend giving this game a whirl if you can find a way to get a hold of it. The game's a ton of fun, and it's the last great Transformers game we're getting for the foreseeable future, no thanks to Reactivate. And no, I'm still not over that. Reactivate's utter nightmare of a development cycle gave me serious trust issues ever since. I do wonder if this game ended up influencing the Energon universe at all. While playing, I couldn't help but feel reminded of scenes like Optimus soloing Devastator or Skywarp. If there are any enterprising modders out there, I would love to see some kind of Skybound mod pack. Give everyone a grittier battle damage retexture and find a way to give Optimus a Megatron arc. That'd be sick. But on that note, I think I've said all I needed to say. This is Major Disaster signing off. Thank you for watching, and be sure to show your friends. And most importantly, make sure to look away from your screen for 20 seconds to prevent Unicron from driving your entire crew insane.